Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Posner, and this is the Don't Panic Project. We provide conversations to help empower, inspire, and educate people suffering from stress, anxiety, and depression. Today's guest is Nick Tullo. Nick is the president and co-founder of Creation in Motion, Inspiring Passion, Inc., a non-for-profit endeavor that brings people together in the community to display the things they are most passionate about with the goal of inspiring other people to find their passions. All proceeds from the events are used to help people with anxiety, depression, PTSD, illness, and injury through holistic healing methods. So welcome, Nick.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Yeah, really glad you're here. So Nick is also a certified mindfulness fundamental teacher. He hosts workshops and events that revolve around mindfulness, meditation, gratitude, self-love, and finding your passion. Pretty inspiring. And his goals are to erase the stigmas of meditation and mindfulness by sharing his stories and his journey with the hope that others will be inspired to pay it forward and share their stories too. So to that end, Nick,
thanks.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and your journey? How'd you get into this line of work, so to speak?
Yeah, so my first real encounter with meditation happened probably like 2 years ago, actually, around this time. I was just out of shape and wasn't really feeling myself, and going back to the gym I knew wouldn't really be the greatest thing. So I decided to take on meditation. I downloaded the Calm app. I think I sat for like 30 days straight and actually meditated. I lost, like 20 pounds. I was feeling better, and I kind of just got away from it. After, I guess, I achieved my goals, so to say. I think that happens a lot of times where we get our fulfillment out of things and we just kind of be like, all right, I'm good now. I don't really need too much. Fast forward like 6 months later, I took up floating, which is sensory deprivation, where you're in you float in Epsom salt water in a sensory deprived environment. And it's almost like a meditation hack, I think we like to call it in the industry, where your mind just naturally detaches from your senses and you access deeper thoughts and deeper states of meditation a little bit easier. I did that pretty much because I was feeling pretty unguided in my life. I wasn't sure of my path and my journey, what was coming up next. At the time, my girlfriend and I she was on the same kind of journey too. So we were like, let's try something different. And floating really has really opened me up, not just spiritually but just to all different types of new healing methods and things like that. The actual owner of the float place is my co-founder of Creation in Motion. So we've developed a really good relationship, and from that, we really wanted to help other people and, who are going through things in their lives, and that's how we kind of came up with Creation in Motion. But yeah, so floating really has helped. It was actually my third float. I heard this phrase, something for us, like over and over and over again. I think sometimes in our meditation, we get into such deep states that sometimes things just come into our brain and we're like, wow, what does that mean? Or what is that? And, as we're taught in our meditation practices, we kind of like let things settle and then let them go. And that's pretty much what I did. A couple days later, I got to writing. I wrote at the top of my journal, something for us, and outlaid the idea for Creation in Motion, Inspiring Passion. So last April on a Thursday night, we had our first event at the Glen Cove Mansion. We had over 400 people in attendance. We had 35 vendors who were displaying the things that they're passionate about, as well as we had some holistic healing, like Reiki sessions and stuff being offered. We had different forms of meditation and kirtan and a whole bunch of things. So it was a huge, successful night. We raised about $8,000 that night, and we put all that money back into the community after some of the expenses and stuff we had to cover. But we were able to buy over 40 floats for people that we felt that either reached out to us or I've made connections with. And what I tried to do is I bring people to the float. I actually had three of those this weekend, where I brought people for their first float. We float in separate, obviously, tanks, and then after we kind of just talk and just sharing my story and the things that I've encountered along the way. I found a really great way to connect with people. And after these floats, people are more clear and more conscious and are able to kind of be open to share their struggles and the things that they're going through. And that has now developed into so much amazing stuff through I just co-hosted a yoga retreat, and now I've got this idea for these workshops, and I'm starting to book some events at with groups and at local facilities and stuff, just to kind of bring awareness to mindfulness and meditation. I think, as you know, there's this stigma around meditation and mindfulness that, like, you have to be able to clear your mind, and you have to be able to do all this stuff. And people give up after the first time because they think they're not good at it. And, you know, what they don't realize is that they're actually good at it, because what they're doing is, by sitting, all this crazy thoughts and things that are coming into your mind, that means you're doing it correctly. And the more you work on it and the more you get to it, you're able to reach a more calmer state. So, you know, I like to say I watched an interview on CNN once, and the Dalai Lama was on, and he said, you know, he was interviewing the guy, and the guy was like, you know, I find it really hard to clear my mind. And the Dalai Lama was like, yeah, so do I. He's like, meditation isn't easy. So if it's not easy for the Dalai Lama, it's not going to be easy for you. So, you know, that's one of my goals really through a lot of this stuff, is to kind of simplify what meditation and mindfulness is to people, and just make it more accessible and more easy, and be some kind of vice for people that need to share and are looking for a way to share, but they feel like a lot of times they have to keep things to themselves because they're worried about how people might perceive them or judge them. And, you know, so that's really a quick gist of my background and stuff, but yeah.
So let me ask you this, Nick. Let's even dial it way back. So, I mean, you know, you've kind of entered this kind of contemplative, these contemplative practices, for lack of a better term,
right?
Mindfulness, and doing yoga and floats. Mm-hmm. You have a daily writing practice, which maybe we'll have some time to talk about. But
sure.
Can you tell us how you grew up and some of the circumstances that you grew up? And, you touched on just kind of being in a little bit of a dull state, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
It kind of pushed you to download the Calm app.
Mm-hmm.
So just, if you could dial it even back further a little bit, tell us how you grew up, and then I want to kind of get into, you said you did the Calm app for 30 days straight, and I kind of actually want to ask you about that experience. So
okay, cool. Yeah, so I mean, I had a pretty great childhood growing up, you know, no problems with anything. My dad worked a bunch of jobs. My mom was at home to take care of us. We lived a great life. We traveled a lot. We had a house in Scottsdale. So, things are great, you know, like, I can't complain. You know, I'm super grateful for the opportunity and being able to grow up. I know that's not, you know, you would think with a good childhood and stuff, you should be able to succeed pretty much at anything. And I was blessed for that. And, but at the age of 13, I'm the youngest of three kids. My parents, got divorced, and I guess it was something a long time coming, but me being so young, I never really fathom the idea. So yeah, I was caught in the middle of a lot of that. My brothers and my dad didn't really see eye to eye after the divorce, and I was in the middle of a lot of it between my dad and my mom. You know, tell your father this, tell your mom that, you know, here's the check for the child support, and, you know, tell your dad this payment's due. So I think, you know, a lot of
topics for a 14-year-old, no doubt.
And I loved my parents both so much unconditionally that I think I just didn't even realize what I was experiencing. And not until recently, it's kind of funny, but I just went to hypnotherapy recently, and it all came up. This 13-year-old self that was standing in the middle of the house alone, that I didn't realize I needed to come to terms with, and you know, give him a big hug and be like, hey man, don't worry, like, you're going to be okay, and things are going to be all right. And through this journey and a lot of the stuff that I'm realizing, I'm starting to become very grateful for those moments, even though they were really tough, because I get to look back on them, and even recent things, and we'll talk about it a little bit when we get into it. But, you know, I kind of was on my own, you know, I was forced to kind of build myself and who I was. And I think a lot of my, you know, in the mid-20s and stuff, my partying and wanting to be the center of attention, and always having the spotlight on me, and just being this fun, outgoing person, was just a lot that I was seeking for attention as I was you know, and a lot of it just a real great peaceful state. I think it all usually happens normally as you get older. You kind of settle down. A lot of my friends are getting married and moving on and starting families and moving and stuff like that. So I'm at this great state of being by myself where I get to just focus on myself, and is really honed in because I'm starting to really love myself and taking care of myself. And when you start to do that, you start to really open up the opportunities to allow things to come in. So like I had a good childhood and then a rough teenage and then a party 20-year-old, but I was always a hustle bustle person. Now I'm in a union, and it's not my style. I was always working in event planning and entertainment and setting up events for other people and really loving it, working 100-hour work weeks and not caring because I was doing all this fun stuff. And now I'm in this like union job where, it's like when you get told to do something, you go and do it. And that's a lot where creation in motion came into play, was because I wanted to find something to be a part of something that I love doing, but at the same time, I can help other people out. And it was really amazing, that first event. It was like so easy to me because event planning comes to me like, easy peasy. I can show up and I have it all in my head and I'm mindful in those situations. And I'm like, all right, this goes here. Okay, good. And the event we planned it in 5 weeks. We had over 400 people there.
Wow.
And that stuff came easy. So, I knew what I needed to do and I knew the change. It was just, it's tough. I think we often fail because we're afraid to fail. And like when we want to make that next step, it's like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Quit my job or do this? But if you could just go for it and like hone in and really focus and stay mindful, you can, and put in the extra effort and stuff, you can really make things possible. So yeah, it was a lot of growing up and a lot of realizing, and it all really didn't really start happening till like the last year or so. So it's different. Yeah, for sure.
So let me ask you this. Your first 30-day stretch of meditation, you said you kind of got into this and you just went, head first and 30 days straight. What was the experience? Well, describe it a little bit. So how long were the meditation sessions, and then what was the experience like?
So it was really awesome. I think they were like 10 to 15 minute sessions. Calm offers like maybe it was 30 days or 21 days. I'm not really sure. That's how long ago it was. But I just started like each day off finding time down or finding a time in my day where it was good, where I cut it out. So yeah, it was nice. They were guided meditations, so it was easy. It was just a lot of focusing on your breath and body scans. And some of the days they focused on different intentions and different things like that. So I really enjoyed it. It was just at that point, I don't know what I was really even in search of. You hear things, you're like, meditation. How do I even get into this? And it's like, oh, okay. And from that, it led me to just be more open to finding out what mindfulness and meditation was. And I stopped after that time and didn't really get back to it until maybe 6, 7, 8 months later. And, I don't really sit and meditate every day or do yoga every day or something. I have a practice that allows me to really hone in on mindfulness. And even moments like this, it's like, okay, I'm here, and my only thing that I have to worry about right now is this, being on Jim's podcast, being on the Don't Panic Project, and whether I'm washing my dishes or taking a shower or going for walking my dog, all those moments, it has trained me to just be more mindful and be in those moments. And what that happens is, while you're doing that, you starting to get a lot of clarity, because you're like, oh, okay, I'm not distracted by anything else that happens. And it's like meditation. When you're sitting, if something comes into your mind, you don't really want to analyze it and go over it. You just want it to settle and then move on from it and go back to your meditative practices. So I try and use those things in my everyday life. Like if I'm washing the dishes, I'm like, okay, clean the dishes, rinse them, put them on the rack, or put them in the washer, in the whatever it's called, the dishwasher.
Yeah.
So I've really found a lot of clarity and a lot of peace in just finding my mindfulness practice, where I don't have to sit every day. I don't have to worry about, oh my God, it's 12 o'clock. I haven't sat and meditate. I have an app on my Fitbit that's a reminder to breathe, like at 12 o'clock every day. So if I'm wearing it, which I'm not right now, but at least I'll take some time to breathe for a minute and disconnect. So I like to tell everybody now with, my whole thing about erasing stigmas and about meditation and mindfulness is your practice is your practice. Find a routine and find something that works for you. And when you do, you can start to adjust. Like, hey, you know what? I could benefit off sitting daily, or I could benefit off doing yoga every other day, or I can benefit off, doing something else that works for me, that fits into my schedule. Because a lot of time I think people just give up or stop because they don't have time for it. I think that's the number one thing. We don't have time to do anything anymore.
It's a big misconception as far as meditation and mindfulness goes. People think that meditation is this, always on the mat practice, and it's, you need to find 30 minutes to sit, and close your eyes and meditate, whatever that means to certain people. But, a big part of a solid meditation practice is the ability to integrate it into everything you do.
Right.
And, Shinzen Young, who wrote The Science of Enlightenment, a New York Times bestseller, he talks about a lot, the informal practice and, the Science of Enlightenment. I think he had 3 qualifications to be enlightened. One is, that you have to have an on-the-mat practice, an informal practice, and yet maybe 4. You have to go on, retreats, and you have to have teachers. 4 things. Anyway, but the informal practice, very, very important. And
for sure,
one of the most popular articles I wrote, I write for Thrive Global.
Okay.
And one of the most popular articles I wrote was titled, "I Meditate While Driving." People hear that or that title and they're like, what? But, obviously I'm not closing my eyes and driving, but I'm making a point of, bringing all my senses and being completely present with everything. And it's all about intention. That's what this practice is all about. It's about, like you were talking about doing the dishes or cooking or whatever it is. I'm going to have this intention to be completely present with the task at hand, and, not worry about something that I can't control that, takes place next week, or something that be said to me last week, that I didn't like. I'm not going to let that bother me or think about it at this moment. So, that's what it's all about.
For sure.
Hey, so question. I know we had talked briefly, and you said you recently went through, I don't know, maybe a bit of a change or some trials. And so you alluded to the fact that it was a stressful time. So if you could share with us a little bit, share your vulnerability, and maybe tell us how your practice helped you get through it.
For sure. I think this is where I'm starting to really connect with people the most, is not being afraid to share my emotions and my vulnerability. And it's really led me on this path to do more of it, because the more I share, I think, on Instagram and social media sites about my honesty and like what's happened in my life, the more people are like, oh, okay, like he's going through it, but look how positive he is, and look at the things he's doing. So it allows people to feel comfortable and safe to reach out to me. So we'll rewind back to April of last year. I just got done with the Creation in Motion event, flying high, feeling great. And, we were ready to steamroll into another event, and things didn't really work out. Just lining up, just improper planning. Intuition told us, like, you know what, maybe this isn't right. And that kind of started to make me question creation, emotion, inspiring passion. Like, hey, can I do this full time? Can I make this into a living? Can I do stuff? And I started to really question a lot of the stuff. Sorry, my dog's coming into the frame here. Oh, thank you. Sit down. So I started just getting really off course with a lot of stuff, and started to not focus on things that were important in my life. My relationship, first and foremost, I was so high on creation, emotion, inspiring passion that I forgot to remain grounded. And that's one of my key things that I always remind myself now that I'm back on track, is to remain grounded. And I think I just kind of flew off the rails a little bit with the overexcitement and the need to do this stuff. And end of July, beginning of August, my girlfriend and I ended up splitting up. She had to move out. For about a month in September. I did this like 30 inspirational days, and I was, putting out inspirational stuff, and I was getting such great feedback. But what I realized through all of it was that I wasn't maybe so much doing it for other people. I was doing it for myself to kind of keep me distracted and off what was going on in my life. And October came around, and I remember it clearly. It was right after the Las Vegas shootings. So I was very emotional with my feelings and stuff, and mad at the world and all the things that were going on. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm all alone. I don't have my girlfriend anymore. All I got is this dog. And yeah, I'm by myself, and I was feeling really lonely. I went to a kirtan, which is a spiritual practice like in the Indian culture where you chant and stuff. And usually I'm pretty active, and I just laid there that night, and everything just came rushing to the forefront. And from about October to January, I was just lost, feeling unmotivated, not going to yoga. I didn't food shop for like 3 months. I was starting again. And I couldn't pull myself out. I describe it as quicksand, right? I was very aware that I wasn't in the right place, but I couldn't do anything about it. I was up to my neck in this quicksand, and I was like trying to get out and pull myself out, but I couldn't. But I was so aware of what was going on in my life that I knew something needed to happen. And sometimes when you go through that kind of stuff, and you're like, okay, all right, something needs to be done, and you're mindful of it, and nothing's happening. Like, you're like, I'm used to this kind of stuff as a wave. Like, when you're on top, you're good, and when you're down, okay, don't worry, because the next swing is coming up. And this lasted for like three months. And I started getting nervous. I was like, man, this is not good. Like, I need something to pull me out. And I had people over on New Year's Eve. I had a big bash at my house, like 20 people. It was a great time. And the next day, I went downstairs to run a load of laundry, and I stepped in water, and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? Maybe a pipe froze or something. And my sewage backed up into my house. So it's kind of a fucked up story, but I was literally standing in shit water. And I was like, I I can't believe this is happening right now. I just had a great time. Like started to feel better.
Cherry on top for the way you were.
Yeah.
The last 3 months, it's just like now.
Exactly.
Now I'm standing in shit.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And you know what? I remember it vividly. I just put my hands up to my basement ceiling and laughed and said, you know what? It doesn't get any worse than this. You're standing in shit. You're in it. You're in this shit. So it's time to start turning it around. And I cleaned it up. The problem got fixed. And I went food shopping like a couple days later just to get myself back and stocked my fridge with all good, healthy produce. And, my birthday was coming up. I extended my snowboarding trip up in Vermont for a week and doing things that I love. Self-love. Just kept reminding myself, what can it be? I sat and meditated. I started going back to yoga. I booked a trip to Austin. And Austin is really where I found everything back. I believe in synchronicity and things that happen for a reason. There are signs to show you, and I'll be real brief about it. But I was on my way to Austin. I just bought Gary Vaynerchuk's new book, Crushing It, and I was reading it and getting super inspired and all this, like all these ideas. I'm like, I can do this for a creation emotion, or I can start my own side business and do these workshops, and boom, 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 boom. Everything's happening. And I'm feeling so great. I get off the plane to Austin. I sit down at lunch. My buddy got a bucket of fried chicken. We ordered some oysters, had a beer, and I bite into the last oyster, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a shell. Like, let me cipher through this, make sure I get it out, and spit out what happened to be a pearl. And it's 1 in 10,000 oysters have a pearl in it, right? And in my beer, in my hand, the beer that I was drinking was a pearl beer. So I'm like, wow, what are the odds of this, right? So I'm like, this is some kind of sign. Get into the car. I say to my buddy, what's that term? Like, the world is your oyster, right? I was like, maybe the world is my oyster. Maybe it's time for me to start doing my stuff, and I can come down to Austin and, start doing this. All these crazy things are happening. Fast forward, like a couple weeks later, and I remember a tarot card reading that I got from the only reading I've ever got from my friend Donna, and she pulled this card that was a man over a ledge, and he was looking over, and he had a globe in his hand and the wand, a big staff in his other. And it was, you have the whole world in your hands, but you always have to remember to remain grounded. So whatever path you're on, the journey you're on, just, you got creation and motion in your hand. You got all these plans, but don't forget to hone back in. And that's how I come back to. It's like, always remember to remain grounded. When things are really good, kind of pull back and just analyze everything, make sure that you're good, like mentally, physically, emotionally, like everything's all right. And I read the description of that card, and in it, it says, you know, the world, he's overlooking, he's got the globe in his hand, he's overlooking, and it means that the world is his oyster. And I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm like, here it is again, you know? And the last part is I told a girl at the yoga retreat that I just co-hosted, like, you got to read this book. You're in this transitional stage. It will help you get some ideas. And at the end of the yoga retreat, she sent me a picture that night, and she's like, look what I just came across. And on page 16, didn't even realize it, Gary Vee talks about how social media is the oyster for, you know, entrepreneurs. And you can have all these pearly content and this stuff. And I'm like, shit, I didn't even realize it. I was reading this book on the way down, and it happened. So sometimes these signs and stuff come into our lives, right? And you got to pay attention to them, because they're literally signs for you to tell you that, all right, you know, this is your journey. This is what you're supposed to be on, and go for it and take that leap. So I'm really happy that I have my practice of mindfulness and all the research and stuff that I've done, because it's allowed me to be in so many moments now more that I never really I always took for granted. You know, it's just like, wow, like if I wasn't here and focusing on this, or, you know, floating and this creation of motion, how it's brought me and introduced me to so many people. I'm just meeting with, you know, Michael C. Bryan was on this podcast. I just sat down and had tea with him the other day, because of this opportunity that we met has now put me in touch with him. And it's, you know, just speaking to someone like him. Right? Oh my God, the best. Yeah. And, you know,
unbelievable story also. If you haven't, you got to check out one of my early episodes of the Don't Panic Project with C. Bryan. Anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely do, because honestly, it came at a perfect time for me, because in this transitional stage, you know, he said something really important that day. And that's what actually linked me and him up was, you know, just chill the fuck out. You know, it's not about the destination. Enjoy the journey. You know, he's 52, 53, whatever it was. And he's like, now I'm finally at the stage of my life where I'm happy. And he was mad at himself that it took him this long. And now I'm like, you know what? It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. And like, I don't have to worry about creation of motion becoming this huge thing, or my, you know, leaving my job and creating a new business and all this stuff. Just keep doing things in each moment. And like, when people can reach out to you, connect with them and try and collaborate as much as you can, because what that does is just inspire everybody. And like, that's where I've really felt my connection, and how I'm going to be able to help people is just telling this story, like being vulnerable, wearing my heart on my sleeve and my emotions out front, because that's what people need to see. And the more we connect and the more we collaborate, the better it is for everybody else. And all I ask in the end is, when I work with somebody, is, hey, no, thank you. You did this. You had everything possible. You just needed to hear someone else say, yeah, I went through it too. Now it's your turn. Now you go and pay it forward to somebody else. You tell your story. I call it like the greatest pay it forward pyramid scheme, right? Imagine if we all did this. Imagine if we all had podcasts where we talked about our feelings and our emotions, and we just kept paying it forward, and we kept talking to more people, and those people talked to more people. The world would be a better place, you know? And I think the more we really just share and talk and collaborate, the better, you know, the better we'll all be as a community. So
yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And I want to follow up on something you kind of triggered something for me when you were talking, you know, the pearl and the oyster and you know, the tarot card and all this. But, you know, I do genuinely believe that everything we need is presented to us, you know, and, on a daily basis or so forth. But many of us are so just clouded. We're constantly worrying about the future, ruminating about the past, that we can't see what's right in front of us, and we can't see the opportunity that's right in front of us. And, you know, that's a lot of what mindfulness is all about. You know, you hear people talk about being in the present moment, and, you know, that's what it's all about. It just teaches you, you know, how to, one of my meditation teachers actually said, you know, hey, mindfulness, it teaches you how to take the mental garbage out. And, and, you know, when you take the mental garbage out, you create a lot more space.
Oh, for sure.
You know, up there in our heads for new ideas to come in, and to just, you know, this heightened sense of awareness for ideas and opportunities that end up presenting themselves. And, you know, listen, I'm in the throes of, you know, starting a business also. It's around, you know, I teach corporate mindfulness. I work with a lot of schools also. And, it's not easy. There's a lot of days
Right.
where I do, get a little frustrated.
For sure.
But, my practice definitely helps keep my head on straight. And
right. Sure.
it's like I said, it's not always, roses and unicorns. It's
I always say rainbows and unicorns.
Rainbows.
So
there you go. That's probably what.
But but it's funny because those are all normal emotions.
Yeah.
I think what the problem is that we don't realize that they're normal emotions, right? Like that's all normal stuff to feel. Like you're supposed to feel that way, because if it was easy, if it was all rainbows and unicorns, everybody would be doing it. But the fact of the matter is that really, I like to say that 90% of the people, aren't happy doing what they're doing. Maybe there's even smaller, maybe 10%, 5% of the people are maybe only enjoying what they do. So in order for you to find something that you love, you have to be okay with how you're feeling. And if you're not feeling good, well, guess what? That's a sign of you need to take a step back and analyze the things that are going on in your life, because to just keep going on through the day-to-day stuff, like, it is not healthy for you, and you're not being mindful. Like I start, it was funny, you wrote in the email today, I start every day off with a mantra and I have a sign next to my bed that says, today is the best day ever and tomorrow will be even better. Because I truly believe that if you wake up and you start your days off with a positive affirmation, that what will follow is what's supposed to happen. So if you're putting good energy out there, good energy is going to come back. And if something stumbles along the way, at least you're in a right, good, positive mind frame to adjust that. Like I call it the stub your toe effect. If you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I got to go to work, and you go to the end of your bed and you stub your toe on the end of the bed, the phrase you're always going to say is, it's going to be one of those days. And guess what? It will be one of those days. Like you'll get into a car accident, or you'll get stuck in, construction traffic, and then you get to work and there's piles of work on your desk. Yeah. Guess what? You brought that upon yourself. Like if you started the good days off and you felt good, you'll be able to deal with stubbing your toe or sitting in traffic. You'll put on good music. You'll get to your work and you'll be like, all right, I got all this shit I got to get done. Let me take a good approach to make my life easier instead of just diving head in.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of science also, about your positive affirmations, and that's one thing, or gratitude practice where you could kind of just talk about things, hey, write down 3 things you're grateful for every day, or go through this kind of loving kindness mantra, which I've talked about before on the show. Yeah. And, these little practices actually change your brain and the way you think, and there's neuroplasticity that occurs, and it really does work. It makes you, a more positive person, and you're also able to do away with negativity or or adverse things that may happen a lot quicker. Right. So, instead of letting them take control of you it's the truth of the matter is that it's just so much easier to be negative than it is to be positive. I mean, that's it. I mean, look how easy it is to be for the news to be negative than it is to be positive. Like how often, that's just it. We have all these triggers all day that are create these fight or flight actions. And there's all these negative physiological effects. They create this, incorrect breathing in our chest as opposed to our diaphragm. But if you think about it, we live in this, world where there's just constant stimulation, and most of it is not positive. You walk outside, there's a siren, or you turn the TV on, it's negative news. Your computer, the home screen is the news page. These things are rigged to get notifications. Constantly. It's just. And listen, I think rates of depression and anxiety have skyrocketed over the last few years, and a lot of that has to do with the flow of information. Information, for sure, is disseminated much, much quicker, and so. Right. Yeah. And it's not blaming any of that stuff too. It's just that's just how we've evolved, too. So it's just the reality. It is. Yeah, it's just the reality. Everybody wants instant. Always had access to.
Exactly. And instead of worrying about that so much, it's just, you got to be in the now. Like, the more you take care of stuff's in the moment and stop worrying about what has happened or what's going to happen, the more you'll have a sense of calm, like, and it's really amazing how we just do it to ourselves. No one in your life is responsible for your happiness except for you. Like, you allow people to have a negative effect on you. People don't just have a negative effect on you. If you want to sit in front of the TV and watch 7 hours of news, and you're allowing that to happen, you're controlling your happiness. And I saw it was really interesting. Will Smith is on like this new path. So if you're not following on Instagram, I highly
a couple of people have told me to start following. So he's got some good messages.
Yeah,
and, I have to say,
and he's funny. You see this guy as the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, so you can kind of like connect with him. You're like, oh, it's this funny guy. But then he starts like talking real truth, and he said something really amazing. It was him and his wife Jada, and they came to this point in their lives where they were like, we have to stop. It's not our responsibilities to make the other person happy. We have to make ourselves happy. And when you make yourself happy and you love yourself, then in turn you'll be able to, provide that for somebody else, and I'm such a huge believer in that. And the reason why is because I've worked with a lot of people recently that they're like, oh, I'm never going to find the right person, or I hate my job, or, I have all this stress and this stuff going on. Well, what have you done for yourself lately? What do? You just wake up and just go about your days every day, or are you focusing on yourself? And a lot of it just come down to be like saying it, like the way we speak and our words, and how it's a direct connection to our mind, body, and soul. Like, if you do that and you work on that and you're conscious of that, when you're ready, then that's when the good people come into your life. It's a natural progression. Like I'm seeing it with myself. Like, I think people are always like, what the hell is he doing? Like, what's going on with him? Why is he sharing all this stuff? And if those people want to be in my life, they'll come in and be a part of it. If they don't, they'll drift and go off and everybody's allowed to live whatever life that they want. So if we stop worrying about other people's happiness and making other people's happy, and we focus on ourselves, when we get ourselves right, then that's when all the good stuff starts to happen. So whenever like I work with someone one-on-one, I'm like, all right, I'm hearing everything. Like, just listen to how you speak. Like, I hope, or I can't, or I won't, or
It's really important. Mindfulness is just another word for awareness. And when you practice it, you get this heightened awareness. And part of it is heightened awareness of your thoughts. And you start to bring, this realization that, hey, maybe I am saying negative things. And listen, we've all been around people that are really negative, right? Yeah. And it's an energy suck. And, through this journey, I've realized throughout my life, certain people, even family members, and it's played a part in, some of the anxiety that I've experienced
for sure
as throughout my life. That, hey, this person that I might be close to is very negative, and when there's constant negative phrases are being thrown out in your presence, or somebody's just good at picking out the negative of everything, you start to believe that, and it seeps into everything you do, and
for sure
it's not a good way to live. And
but you're aware, when you're mindful, you're aware of what's going on, right? So if you allow those negative emotions and what the people are saying to have an effect on you, then it's just gonna start to take you over, So, through this journey, and it's only happened over the last couple months, it's like I have attracted so many amazing people into my life. Like, even just meeting you, like, it's funny. It's like, I met you through my friends, my friend Crystal, who went to a networking event. And because I was putting this good stuff out there, people are like, hey, I got someone you should meet. I think you guys can really get along. When has that ever happened? If we were just living our ordinary lives, people wouldn't just be like, the only time is like when they think maybe a business thing might be lucrative because they know what you do for a business, or maybe someone wants to set you up with a cousin who they think you'll be cool to like date or something. But now all of a sudden people are like, hey, you're doing all this awesome stuff. I want you to meet somebody. I think you guys can really like connect. And this is what happened. So And I keep meeting these people. And the more I do that, the more I'm surrounding myself by these positive people. And then what happens is also in return, people come to me because they're in search for positivity. So all I have to do is just be myself and tell my story. And in return, someone's going to get something out of it. So it's really interesting how the negative people, I stopped giving, and I'm going to curse, I stopped giving a fuck about what anybody thinks of me.
You've cursed a whole bunch already. Don't worry.
Yeah. I stopped giving a fuck about what anybody thinks of me. Like, I put up a picture of me doing like a warrior 3 pose, and usually people will be like, oh, wow, he does yoga. That's weird. Like yogis and this and that. I'm not a yogi. I'm just a dude who found a practice in yoga that allows my body to feel better. Like, and I go to it when I feel like the need to and stuff. So I don't care if someone makes fun of me for doing yoga. I don't care if someone thinks I'm crazy for sharing my emotions, because I stopped worrying about the likes and the comments and started realizing that, hey, I could post something that has 160 likes and 5 people can get it. I could post something that has 30 likes, but 28 people that read that might get something more out of it. So stop caring about like the need to satisfy everybody, and it just naturally happens because you're real, you know.
And at the end of the day, what all of that is about your fear of what somebody else is going to think of you. And at the end of the day, that is the strongest thing that holds people back.
Right.
A fear of what other people, think of them.
Right.
A fear of what they think people think of them, And the reality is most of the time we think people are going to judge us and have this negative idea of us, and it's just not even founded in any truth either.
No, true, yeah, and it's really amazing. That's why my number one thing I'm preaching right now to everybody is just self-love. Like, listen, if you got stuff going on in your life, just take a step back and start focusing on yourself. Don't worry about your family. Don't worry about your friends. Don't worry about anybody else in your life. You need to get yourself right first, and you can do it. And it's all possible because for so long in your life, you've been focusing on what everybody else thinks. And stop it, because unless you're making yourself happy, you're never going to make anybody else happy either. So
there's no doubt. And, listen, it held me back for years. Being afraid to kind of talk about some things that I went through. Mm-hmm. I, just had this period of acute anxiety after I'd gone through loss, and I started to have some panic attacks.
Yeah.
I finally started to tell friends of mine, and you know what? Without fail, almost every single person could relate on some level. So again, it's this whole false idea of what people are going to think of me. They're going to think I'm weak or whatever it is. And meantime, everybody else is suffering the same way.
Yeah. And it's because people think that they don't need to deal with it or approach it because, maybe they're making a lot of money and it's worth all the stress and anxiety that they're putting on themselves. But eventually what happens is the more you bury those emotions, eventually it's going to come up and get you.
Well, eventually it erupts.
Yeah, like it does.
Exactly. Volcano, and it does some serious damage. So, hey, listen, you know what? We are running short on time. I could honestly talk about this stuff with you for hours.
Yeah, I know. It's
been 45 minutes now, so it's flown by. So Nick, just tell us quickly, what do you have anything coming up? Anything?
Yeah. Some big news. So we locked in our second date for our Creation in Motion event at the Glen Cove Mansion. It's going to be on May 12th. It's the Saturday before Mother's Day. We're going to have they gave us a Saturday now this year. Last year we did it on Thursday. It's probably going to be from like 12 to 8 p.m. and we're going to have meditation workshops, mindfulness workshops, holistic healing, Reiki sessions. We're going to have a huge shopping market. We're going to do yoga. So it's going to be a full day event. This was the event that we had 400 people at. We're hoping that we can get like 1,000 people down this year since it's going to be a full day thing. And it's really a great way to just dabble in all the different things. It's a ticketed event. I think it's going to be anywhere from like $25 for the pre-sale to $45, after. So,
awesome. Sounds like a great way for people to investigate some practices that they might want to start.
For sure, yeah. And if you want more information, you can follow us on Instagram at Creation in Motion. We're going to be releasing all the information within the coming days and stuff, and just keep rolling out stuff. So, and then there'll be tickets to buy and things you can find out all of it through our Instagram page.
All right, awesome. So thanks, Nick, and thank you to the viewers and listeners for tuning into this edition of the Don't Panic Project. You can find more great conversations at www.thedon'tpanicproject.com or on our YouTube channel. And now you can also listen to us on iTunes. My name is Jim Posner. I work with smart, forward-thinking individuals, corporations, schools, and athletes to help harness the power of mindfulness to achieve peak performance and manage stress. See you next time on the Don't Panic Project.